In June 2026, a locomotive returned to the building where it was born. The Flying Scotsman, the most famous steam engine ever built, rolled back onto the workshop floor in Doncaster, where it had been assembled 103 years earlier. More than 3,000 people came to see it, but they were not there to celebrate. They were there to say goodbye. Within weeks, the factory that built it would shut its doors for the last time. 172 years of continuous operation ended by a corporate decision taken 5,000 kilometres away in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Act 1. The Ordinary World. Doncaster, 1853. The Great Northern Railway needed a central works. Its smaller sites at Boston and Peterborough could no longer keep pace with the expanding main line, and Doncaster sat squarely on it. The initial plant works building, designed by William and Joseph Cubitt, opened on 11 acres of flat South Yorkshire ground beside Hexthorpe Road, with 10 workshops and a repair facility. Nothing more than that. Locals called it the plant. They would never call it anything else. Within a generation, the works and the town had become inseparable. The rhythm of the shifts set the rhythm of the streets. The smell of hot metal and machine oil drifted across Hexthorpe on working mornings, and the men who walked through the gates each day did so knowing their fathers had walked through them before. For its first 13 years, the Doncaster Works did not build a single locomotive. Every engine that ran on the Great Northern was ordered from outside contractors and merely serviced at the plant. That changed in 1866 when Patrick Stirling arrived as locomotive superintendent. Stirling ended Doncaster's dependence on outside builders. By late 1867, the first locomotive constructed entirely on site had left the works. His creations were unmistakable. The Stirling singles, express engines with 8-foot driving wheels, were among the most elegant machines the Victorian railway network had ever produced. Doncaster was no longer a repair shop. It was a factory, and it was about to become something considerably more than that. By the 1890s, the works was turning out 99 locomotives, 181 carriages, and nearly 1,500 wagons in a single year. Doncaster had built the country's first sleeping cars, its first dining cars, and its first corridor coaches. In 1891, a local firm named H. Arnold & Son completed a vast new erecting shop on the site, specifically designed to accommodate the larger locomotives the 20th century would demand. That building still stands. It is the room where everything that follows took place. Act 2A. The Rise, Gresley's Doncaster. In 1911, Nigel Gresley became Chief Mechanical Engineer of the Great Northern Railway. He was 35 years old, over the next 3 decades working almost entirely from the Doncaster shops. He would design some of the most celebrated machines in the history of transport. In 1923, the Railways Act forced Britain's competing railway companies into 4 large groups. The Great Northern Railway ceased to exist, absorbed into the New London and North Eastern Railway. Doncaster's works might have been downgraded in the reorganisation. Instead, it became the owner's principal locomotive factory, and its first major commission would define British engineering for a century. Under Engine Order number 297, the Doncaster Works completed a Class A1 Pacific locomotive. It cost £7,944 to build. It entered service on the 24th of February as number 42, the very first locomotive delivered to the newly formed LN. It was renumbered 40472 the following year and named after the London to Edinburgh Express service that had run since 1862. In 1924, it represented the LN at the British Empire exhibition at Wembley. It became, almost overnight, the most recognisable locomotive in the country. On the 1st of May 1928, fitted with a corridor tender that allowed crew changes mid-journey, the Flying Scotsman hauled the first ever non-stop service from London King's Cross to Edinburgh Waverley. 8 hours, 392 miles, without stopping. On the 30th of November 1934, it became the first steam locomotive officially authenticated at 100 miles per hour. 4 years later, Doncaster produced its second masterpiece. Mallard, a streamlined A4 Pacific, reached 126 miles per hour on the 3rd of July 1938 near Stoke Bank. It remains the fastest steam locomotive ever recorded. That record has stood for 88 years. No one has come close. The works survived the war. It built Horsa gliders for the D-Day airborne assault alongside its locomotive production. A fire in December 1940 destroyed the sawmill and carriage building shop. A replacement was completed by 1949. The Flying Scotsman, by now renumbered 6103 under British Railways, hauled its final service train on the 14th of January 1963 from London King's Cross to Leeds, coming off at Doncaster. It had covered 2,080,000 miles. Days earlier, a businessman named Alan Pegler had bought the locomotive from British Railways for £3,500, saving it from the scrapyard. The political backing of Prime Minister Harold Wilson had helped secure the deal. The engine survived. The world it had been built in was already disappearing. At its pre-war peak, in 1913, the plant had employed roughly 4,600 people. In the post-war decades, the workforce still numbered around 3,700. Doncaster had built over 2,000 steam locomotives. It had produced 2 machines that broke world records. The town and the works were, in every practical sense, the same organism. What nobody in Doncaster knew, in those years of full employment and production, was that the organism was about to be separated from its brain. Act 2B. The first wound, Beeching and the slow bleed. On the 1st of January 1948, the railways were nationalised. The Clna, along with every other major railway company, was folded into British Railways under the British Transport Commission. Doncaster became one of several principal workshop sites answering to a national board in London. In October 1957, the last of the more than 2,000 steam locomotives built at Doncaster left the works. Production switched immediately to diesel-electric construction. The end of steam was not, by itself, the wound. Doncaster adapted. It built new things. The wound was what came next. On the 1st of January 1963, the Transport Act 1962 created the British Railways Board, and Dr. Richard Beeching became its first chairman. His March 1963 report, The Reshaping of British Railways, proposed closing a third of the national network and shedding some 70,000 jobs. Beeching's name became synonymous with destruction. Towns across Britain lost their stations. Branch lines vanished from the map. Doncaster's works survived. Beeching's report targeted lines and stations, not workshops directly. A parallel programme of workshop reorganisation through the 1960s did, however, downgrade Doncaster's status and shrink its workload. In 1965, the wagon repair shops at a nearby site known as the Car were closed, and the work was consolidated back into the main plant. The works remained open. Its role did not remain the same. The Beeching era did not kill the plant. What it did was establish a principle. From this point forward, the fate of a South Yorkshire factory would be determined by men in London offices who had never stood on its shop floor. It kept building. Through the 1970s, Doncaster produced Class 56 freight locomotives. Between 1983 and 1987, it completed the Class 58 diesel electrics. These were the last locomotives British Rail built anywhere in the country. After 1987, Doncaster would never build a new locomotive again. Management of the workshops had passed to British Rail Engineering Limited in 1970. By the 1980s, BREL itself was being prepared for sale. The Transport Act 1981 gave the board powers to dispose of subsidiary businesses, and parliamentary debate at the time named BREL specifically. Privatisation was the word. Contraction was the reality. BREL was privatised in 1989. It passed through ABB, then a joint venture with Daimler-Benz called AD Trans, then Bombardier Transportation in 2001. Each new owner was larger, more distant, and less attached to the particular patch of South Yorkshire where the work was done. The building that had produced the Flying Scotsman was now a line item on a multinational spreadsheet. It did not know this yet. Act 2C. The Long Goodbye. In 2003, the plant marked its 150th anniversary with an open weekend. The celebrations did not last. 4 years later, in 2007, Bombardier Transportation closed its portion of the Doncaster Works. In early 2008, the Crimpsall locomotive repair shop, built at the turn of the century and extended across the decades, was demolished to make way for housing. Local newspapers called it the end of the line. It was not quite. Wabtec Corporation, an American rail technology company, continued carriage refurbishment on the remaining section of the site. The plant was smaller. It was quieter. It was still there. One man refused to let the demolitions pass unmarked. Barry Livesey had started at the plant in 1958 as an office boy. He spent 18 months digging through Doncaster's libraries and archives, compiling a research case for the historic significance of the new erecting shop. The building where the Flying Scotsman and Mallard had been assembled, the building where he had spent his working life. In 2015, Historic England granted the new erecting shop Grade 2 listed status. The man who had repaired trains inside the building had saved it from the wrecking ball, at least the walls. What happened inside them was another matter. In 2019, Wabtec Corporation merged with GE Transportation, becoming, by its own account, the largest rail technology company in the world. Its board chairman was Albert Nupeva. Its president and chief executive was Rafael Santana, a Brazilian-born engineer who had previously run GE Transportation. Neither man had any particular connection to South Yorkshire. Wabtec's annual revenue exceeded $10 billion. The Doncaster site occupied 22 acres of it. In June 2020, Wabtec announced plans to cut 450 jobs at its Doncaster site. The RMT union warned the works could close entirely. On the 7th of February 2025, Wabtec's UK Group Managing Director, Tim Bentley, told staff that the Doncaster site would close. Around 300 to 400 specialist engineering jobs would be lost. The company stated it was exiting the UK vehicle maintenance market entirely. Remaining work would be transferred to an expanded facility at Barton-under-Needwood in Staffordshire, creating roughly 150 new positions there. Sally Jamieson, the Labour MP for Doncaster Central, called the announcement a continuation of bad news following the 2020 redundancies. Ros Jones, the Mayor of Doncaster, expressed disappointment and urged that a solution be found. Neither had the power to reverse the decision. The decision had been taken in Pittsburgh, 300 jobs taken from South Yorkshire, 150 created in the Midlands. The arithmetic of corporate consolidation does not require a calculator. It does, however, require someone to explain it to the people holding the redundancy letters. Act E3. The Farewell and What Remains. More than 3,000 people attended the Farewell Open Weekend at Doncaster Works in June 2026. The event doubled as a celebration of the 150th anniversary of Sir Nigel Gresley's birth. Flying Scotsman was there, so was its sister locomotive, Sir Nigel Gresley. A Doncaster-built Class 58, number 58E003, stood alongside them. Tim Bentley spoke of the legacy of the works and the people who had built it. 3,000 visitors walked through the same shops their grandparents and great-grandparents had walked through on working mornings for over 170 years. Children climbed on engine footplates. Retired workers pointed at lathes they had once operated and explained, to anyone who would listen, what each machine had done. The Flying Scotsman had returned to Doncaster once before, in 2023, for its centenary. That had been a celebration. This was something else. In August 2025, Doncaster had hosted a touring national exhibition train called Inspiration, part of the Railway 200 Bicentenary campaign celebrating the birth of Britain's rail network in 1825. The town was marking 200 years of British railways in the same year its own founding railway works was shutting its gates for good. The original 1853 plant works building survives. The new erecting shop, the building Barry Livesey fought to protect, survives. Both hold Grade 2 listed status. Neither can be demolished without consent. What will happen inside them once the last Wabtec employee walks out remains unconfirmed. The building that survived the Victorian expansion, 2 World Wars, nationalisation, Beeching, BREL, Bombardier, and 172 years of South Yorkshire weather could not survive a product line review conducted in an American boardroom. The listed buildings stand on Hexthorpe Road. The machines inside them do not run. The workers who understood them are leaving or have left. What remains is brick and iron and the particular silence of a room that was built for noise. The Flying Scotsman still runs. It is owned by the National Railway Museum and operates heritage services across the country. It will, in all probability, outlast every institution that has ever claimed to own the place where it was made. The story of what happens to British towns when the work leaves is a story this channel has told before and will tell again. If that is a story worth hearing, the next one is on screen now.